Repite. Recorre. Resetea. Resurge. No es casualidad. Todo lo que tenemos tantas ganas de volver a hacer empieza por Reencuéntrate en la región de Murcia.
Ven a Ourense y desconecta. Ourensanamente.
Ahora Renfe te acerca a Ourense, la provincia termal. Si tienes más de 50 años, disfruta durante 6 días en un balneario de la provincia de Ourense, con el acompañante que quieras, en una estancia con todo incluido. Renfe te lleva desde diferentes ciudades a la estación de Ourense, donde te estarán esperando para tu traslado al balneario. A tu llegada, dispondrás de asesoramiento médico para elegir los tratamientos termales más adecuados para ti. Disfrutarás con todas las garantías de 10 técnicas termales y de una de las mejores aguas mineromedicinales de Europa. Además, realizarás varios circuitos culturales para adentrarte y conocer mejor la cultura y atractivos de Galicia. Entra en trenbalnearios.com y reserva ya la plaza que te transportará a una semana de bienestar y de experiencias únicas. Ourense, la provincia termal. Tu mejor viaje.
Mucho más cerca de lo que piensas, existe un lugar que te invita a escuchar esa pulsión de sentirte vivo, donde subir el volumen a los sentidos y disfrutar la vida en todas sus dimensiones. En Extremadura, todo lo que imaginas, donde no te lo imaginas.
Revive. Recarga. Reactiva. Reconecta. Repite. Recorre. Resetea. Resurge. No es casualidad. Todo lo que tenemos tantas ganas de volver a hacer empieza por Reencuéntrate en la región de Murcia.
Ven a Ourense y desconecta. Ourensanamente.
Ahora Renfe te acerca a Ourense, la provincia termal. Si tienes más de 50 años, disfruta durante 6 días en un balneario de la provincia de Ourense, con el acompañante que quieras, en una estancia con todo incluido. Renfe te lleva desde diferentes ciudades a la estación de Ourense, donde te estarán esperando para tu traslado al balneario. A tu llegada, dispondrás de asesoramiento médico para elegir los tratamientos termales más adecuados para ti. Disfrutarás con todas las garantías de 10 técnicas termales y de una de las mejores aguas mineromedicinales de Europa. Además, realizarás varios circuitos culturales para adentrarte y conocer mejor la cultura y atractivos de Galicia. Entra en trenbalnearios.com y reserva ya la plaza que te transportará a una semana de bienestar y de experiencias únicas. Ourense, la provincia termal. Tu mejor viaje.
Muy buenos días, buenas tardes y buenas noches para todos los que nos están siguiendo en el canal internacional. Les queremos agradecer por continuar con el primer Congreso de Agua y Salud. A continuación vamos a hablar sobre el turismo de salud, su visión global, sus desafíos y oportunidades. Y primero les voy a presentar a los ponentes. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night to all of our audience and all the attendants that we have at the Fair Congress of International Health. We would like to thank you, and we're going to talk in this second part about health tourism, global vision, challenges, and opportunities. And I would like to introduce you our six speakers that are going to join us today. First of all, Mrs. Simone Zagrodnik, Executive Director of the European Historical Thermal Town Association. Then we're going to have the opportunity to speak to Mrs. Teresita van Strate, Technical Advisor and Manager, and also Termatalia International Delegate in Argentina. Mr. Andrew Jaka, President of Asia Pacific Spa Wellness Coalition. Mr. Lotfi Khelifi, Termatalia International Delegate for Tunisia and North Africa. Mrs. Camille Hohev, CEO of Wellness Tourism Worldwide in the United States. And Mrs. Florana Menendez, Vice President of World Federation for Hydrotherapy and Climotherapy, FEMTEC. Please welcome to Mrs. Simone Zagrodnik. I believe she's online right now.
Yes.
Miss Simone?
Can you see me? Hello to everyone.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Are you able to hear me right now? Oh,
Yes, I can hear you.
okay. We're going to try to fix the sound.
Now, can you hear me now? I can hear you.
Yes, we're trying to fix the sound a little bit because
Okay.
it's getting interrupted. Okay, as follows, we're going to move forward with Mrs. Teresita van Strate from Argentina. Vamos a seguir adelante con Teresita van Strate de TBS. Hola, Teresita.
Hola, buen día, ¿me oyen?
Perfectamente, Teresita. Te dejamos entonces.
Bueno, un placer para mí estar aquí con todos ustedes y por primera vez en 15 años no estar allí, lo cual, bueno, la magia de de esta virtualidad nos permite darles este abrazo virtual, agradecer muchísimo a Emma, a todos ustedes, a todo el grupo de Termatalia, saludar a todos mis queridos amigos que están allí, fundamentalmente también saludar a todo el mundo termal. Y bueno, hay un pequeño delay, así que yo estoy viendo una imagen, pero no sé si ustedes están viendo la tarea que quisiera que esté en este momento en pantalla.
Te escuchamos bien, Teresita, y podemos ver ahora el primer slide de tu presentación. Puedes continuar.
Perfecto. Bueno, me pidieron que hablara sobre la visión del turismo de salud en Latinoamérica, y quiero hacerlo también comprometiendo en esto a mis compañeros delegados de Termatalia en toda Latinoamérica, porque sé que ellos estarían representados en esta tarea, y fundamentalmente que estamos todos muy comprometidos en seguir trabajando para que Termatalia siga siendo ese puente que une a Latinoamérica con el resto del mundo y fundamentalmente con Europa, de quienes tanto tenemos que aprender. Así que también hago extensivo el saludo de todos los delegados de Termatalia en Latinoamérica para todos ustedes. Les voy a pedir entonces la primera slide, por favor. Y hablar de turismo salud en Latinoamérica significa ponernos en el contexto de que estamos en un inmenso territorio de más de 20 millones de kilómetros cuadrados, con una población de aproximadamente 650 millones de habitantes. Y sin lugar a dudas, tenemos hoy una situación muy delicada, porque ya nuestro contexto geopolítico venía bastante comprometido. Nosotros tenemos aquí todo lo que ustedes imaginan en variedad de aguas, de recursos termales, de paisajes, pero por supuesto también tenemos una situación que, según la CEPAL, nos pone en una posición bastante difícil. ¿Por qué? Porque tenemos prácticamente 186 millones de personas por debajo de la línea de pobreza y 67 millones por debajo de la línea de indigencia. Y lo que ven en este mapa que está aquí en color más oscuro son los países que han establecido una restricción extrema de movilidad y transporte. Estamos hoy todos dentro de nuestras casas, dentro de nuestros ámbitos, no podemos movernos ni siquiera regionalmente, y esto sin lugar a dudas impacta muy, muy fuertemente sobre nuestra realidad socioeconómica. Obviamente no es lo mismo, porque los países no son iguales y las extensiones, tanto como su realidad socioeconómica, es bastante disímil. Pero sí podemos decir que en los más grandes, como Brasil, México o Argentina, se están poniendo en riesgo 4.500.000 puestos de trabajo en turismo. Esto es importante, esto afecta mucho la economía local, pero también no debemos olvidar que hay pequeños países como los caribeños, donde el turismo es prácticamente un monoproducto, y más del 80% de su producción está basada específicamente en el turismo. Entonces, hacer que podamos disponer cuanto antes de protocolos, de poder atravesar las fronteras y poder empezar a recibir esta corriente vital que es para nosotros el turismo como una herramienta genuina, es fundamental para todos. Poder hacer un análisis de cada en tan poquito tiempo es posible, así que decidimos armar un análisis DAFO para más o menos englobar de esta manera la realidad continental. La próxima, por favor. Vamos a empezar entonces por las malas noticias, para después ir por las buenas. Y por supuesto que vamos a empezar a analizar lo que son nuestras debilidades. Y decimos que el turismo de salud no está consolidado como un producto de exportación, ya que en este momento difícilmente haya un país que a través del termalismo y el turismo de bienestar atraiga a turistas extranjeros a venir a disfrutar de sus instalaciones o de los servicios que se puedan brindar. Las inversiones más importantes de capitales extranjeros y sobre todo España tiene un gran protagonismo dentro de lo que son esas inversiones en Latinoamérica, se focalizan más que nada en el turismo de sol y playa. No obstante, ese turismo no reconoce a la talasoterapia como una herramienta para crear. Esas mismas inversiones tampoco son alentadas para realizarse donde haya complejos termales, y esto se debe en muchos casos a que nos faltan leyes o medidas que impulsen esas inversiones, reglas claras para el inversionista que va a venir del exterior a poner su dinero en nuestros países. Otro problema que solemos tener es el de los recursos humanos. Si bien desde que tenemos relación con Termatalia somos muy agradecidos de todos los esfuerzos que se hacen y toda la ayuda que hemos recibido de las universidades, de nuestros queridos amigos como Paco Maraver y la Universidad de Madrid, también de Santiago de Compostela y de Vigo, todavía estamos muy distantes de poder tener un recurso humano capacitado, fundamentalmente en lo que es la parte médica de crenoterapia e hidroterapia, que nos permitiría brindar esos servicios de turismo de salud específicos, esos tratamientos que hoy sumarían valor agregado a nuestros servicios y que servirían para contrarrestar de algún modo lo que se nos restringe en ingresos a partir de los aforos, porque hoy los países que han podido comenzar a trabajar lo están haciendo con un 30 o un 50% de su capacidad. Así que es fundamental sumar valor agregado para hacerlo económicamente sustentable. Otro de los elementos que nos faltan vademecum, nos faltan caracterizar nuestras aguas, nos falta saber todas las aplicaciones que le podemos dar a nuestras aguas y a nuestros fangos. Recién en la apertura, ustedes están conscientes de todo lo que tienen, ustedes están muy conscientes de la calidad de sus aguas. La Universidad Complutense hoy va a presentar su tercer vademecum. Nosotros en Latinoamérica prácticamente en general no hemos arrancado con esa temática, recién ahora se están haciendo las primeras investigaciones, así que hay que trabajar intensamente sobre eso. Y por supuesto que también la falta de conectividad aérea hace que los centros que tenemos fundamentalmente en todo el eje cordillerano, que son aquellos que tienen mayor riqueza de recursos, muchas veces no puedan estar conectados con las grandes ciudades y por lo tanto tampoco poder desarrollarse como corresponde. La siguiente, por favor. Después de las debilidades vamos a las amenazas. Y dentro de las amenazas, obviamente que el COVID nos ha dejado mucho temor a viajar, a gastar. Y bien, las tendencias de la Global Wellness Summit nos decían que para el 2020 se cifraba mucho la esperanza en el mercado de los baby boomers, en ese segmento de la demanda que significaban los mayores de 60 años. Pues bien, hoy somos personal de riesgo y por lo tanto no podemos salir. Este segmento de mercado se va a ver sumamente restringido, por lo menos lo está haciendo ahora en Latinoamérica. También la falta de protocolos a niveles nacionales en algunos de nuestros países, en otros recién lo están recibiendo en el transcurso de este mes, hacen que se retrase mucho la apertura de los centros termales y los spa, y con ellos esa reactivación económica que tanto esperamos a través del mismo. Si se profundiza la crisis, si seguimos cerrando las fronteras, perdemos también la oportunidad del turismo regional. Esto es muy importante en lugares como, por ejemplo, la vinculación de Entre Ríos con Uruguay, de Mendoza o las provincias cordilleranas o de los países del sur con Brasil. Esto a veces llega a restringir el 50% de la demanda tradicional de termalismo que teníamos en regiones. Lo propio sucederá con las recaudaciones. ¿Y qué pasa? En Latinoamérica, muchos de nuestros centros termales y parques termales son públicos, son propiedad de las administraciones públicas. El hecho de que no tengamos los parques abiertos hace no solo la necesidad de subsidiarlos, sino que también no ingresen a las arcas municipales, a las arcas ese flujo de dinero que ellos tenían incorporados o que tenían pensado en su propio protocolo. Por lo tanto, sabemos que afecta muchísimo y de paso saludamos a la Ciudades Federación, que sabemos que nos está siguiendo por streaming, un grupo grande de personas allí, también Concordia Entre Ríos, porque son estas ciudades que están sintiendo muy intensamente esta falta del termalismo abierto. Y si no están abiertos los parques, y si toda la motivación turística está en función de ellos, tampoco abren los hoteles, tampoco abren los restaurantes, y todo el engranaje turístico se resiente enormemente. Por eso es muy importante poder trabajar cuanto antes en lograr estas reaperturas que las necesitamos y mucho, porque también esta falta de dinero influye en el mantenimiento de nuestros establecimientos. La próxima, por favor. Ya hemos analizado todo lo que nos aflige y mucho. Ahora vamos a la esperanza, porque así nos vamos de aquí con un sabor más dulce. Y la esperanza son nuestras fortalezas, y nuestras fortalezas son, sin lugar a dudas, la enorme variedad de recursos termales, de países, de bellezas y de paisajes. Hoy nos dicen que la vitamina D es fundamental para fortificar nuestro sistema inmunológico, y nosotros en nuestros países tenemos altísimo porcentaje de heliofanía. El sol, nuestro principal aliado, nos ayuda a fijar esa vitamina D. Los centros termales, además, están en zonas rurales y todo el tiempo nos están diciendo que tenemos que estar al aire libre. Por lo tanto, nuestros países pueden ofrecer el máximo de espacio, el máximo de cielos abiertos, el máximo de aire puro y no contaminado. Otro elemento fundamental es nuestra vocación de servicio, la amabilidad de nuestra gente, seguramente nos va a hacer sentir muy bien. Y leyendo para armar esta propuesta, me entero también que la CEPAL dice que en todo Latinoamérica tenemos un alto porcentaje de jóvenes trabajando, es decir, nuestro promedio de fuerza activa es de 31, en este es de 38 y en Europa de 43. Esa fuerza joven tenemos que tratar de retenerla, que no herede, y el turismo sabemos que es uno de los elementos más importantes para eso. Vamos a la próxima, por favor, y entonces vamos a ver cuáles son nuestras oportunidades. Y como las cuarentenas aumentaron esta necesidad de salir a respirar, todos nuestros espacios le dan la magnífica oportunidad de hacerlo. También sabemos que se va a salir más en familia, en esta burbuja que nos pone protocolos, y que se va a intensificar el turismo de cercanía. Por lo tanto, nosotros cuando tenemos una gran oferta de destinos turísticos, y si hubieran podido venir este año, lo hubieran visto en nuestra provincia de Entre Ríos, donde en un radio de 50 kilómetros podemos tener hasta 3 complejos termales. Esto se convierte en una muy buena oportunidad. También tenemos centros termales en un radio de menos de 500 kilómetros a los grandes centros emisores, a las ciudades más importantes, así que eso también es algo que fortifica esta oportunidad. Lo mismo sucede en otros países, no solo en Argentina, en otros países de Latinoamérica, donde generalmente hay un centro termal en conexión inmediata a un gran centro emisor. Y por otra parte, esta virtualidad que hoy nos separa, que hoy no nos permite estar juntos allí con un gran abrazo, también nos da la oportunidad de capacitarnos. Hoy hay muchos argentinos y muchos latinoamericanos, lo sabemos porque hemos estado recibiendo mensajes presentes en Termatalia, porque esta maravilla de la virtualidad nos permite estar allí más allá de las barreras que nos impone el SARS-CoV-2. Y por supuesto, los turistas cada vez están más y mejores informados, saben de la importancia de una mejor calidad de vida, y Latinoamérica, con su biodiversidad, con su calidad en productos orgánicos, en naturaleza, en el oxígeno del aire, se lo puede ofrecer. Así que vamos, por favor, a las conclusiones. Bueno, como conclusión podemos decir que Termatalia, sin lugar a dudas, ha sido durante estos 15 años uno de los vínculos comerciales y de capacitación más grande que hemos tenido, y que es prioritario entonces sumar valor a nuestros productos termales para contrarrestar la disminución de los ingresos por los aforos y las restricciones de traslados. Esto nos da la oportunidad de valorar la gran riqueza de recursos naturales y humanos que tiene nuestro continente, y también de comprender que tenemos una imperiosa necesidad de un marco legislativo que regule al turismo de salud y bienestar con reglas claras y estímulos fiscales para impulsar las inversiones que nos están haciendo tanta falta. El resultado debe ser consolidar este nicho de mercado como un motor de desarrollo local y una verdadera herramienta de redistribución de la riqueza. Muchas gracias y espero rápidamente haber podido cubrir este panorama con respecto a la visión del turismo de salud y bienestar hoy en Latinoamérica después de la situación de pandemia.
Muchas gracias, Teresita, a ti por ese análisis DAFO tan completo. Te agradecemos el tiempo y la conexión, y ahora vamos a seguir adelante con nuestra próxima ponente, que es Simone Zagrodnik. Thank you, Teresita, for giving us that SWOT analysis. And now we're going forward with Mrs. Simone Zagrodnik, Executive Director of European Historical Thermal Town Association. Hi, Simone.
Hi, buenos
Good
dias,
afternoon.
everybody.
Welcome.
Now it's working, I hope.
Now it's
Thank
working
you.
properly. You can go ahead.
Wonderful.
I'll leave you with the
Hello
audience.
to everybody. So I'm very happy to share with you my thoughts and some ideas about the pandemic as an opportunity to rediscover the thermal towns in Europe. If you just would like to thank also our president, Manuel Baltar Blanco, for hosting this event together with Emma. Thank you. And as he mentioned, I just like to introduce E.H.T.T.A quickly. Our association, next slide, please. Our association was founded in 2009 in Brussels. There are 6 members, and there are only some big names that you probably know. It was Aquiterme, Bath, Ourense, Salto Maggiore, Spa, and Vichy that founded the European Historic Thermal Towns Association. Today we are registered in Spa in Belgium as a non-profit association. In 2010, we were actually certified as cultural route of the Council of Europe, and this year in 2020 we are counting 51 members in 18 countries. The mission of the European Historic Thermal Towns Association is to enhance, protect and promote thermalism and thermal heritage in Europe. And to just give you a short idea of some of our members, please enjoy a quick look before I proceed. Next slide, please. I just would like to share with you first the travel motivations and the needs when people travel to spa towns in general. Just imagine, and we all know this, people have traveled to spa towns across Europe for centuries. In the high days, there was the emperors and the kings that enjoyed these places and to improve their health and to enjoy. And of course, people followed. With more people coming to spa towns, there developed a place of well-being. It was, of course, important to enjoy cultural and artistic offers. And I think there are many traditions, as we all know, that go back into these times and that last until today. So if you just think about the motivation to go to such places today, of course, it's always about health, body and soul, for example. But there are also some motivations like the culture, the architecture, the heritage, maybe other things like just getting out of the daily issues, etc. Next slide, please. So just keep that in mind, and then I would like to share with you something I found on in an article actually that was issued before the pandemic at the beginning of the year. And it's a very interesting word I discovered and a new trend you might have heard about. It's called healthness. And this definition I would just like to share with you. It's the self-reflexive, individualized health of the selfness phase will lead into a new approach in the next years to come. Through active self-optimization, the goal of a holistic health is headed for healthness, the search for power and life energy. So this trend, this movement has been there for the last years, more and more. And talking about this healthness, I think this word really describes, it's not only about our own health these days, it's also about the environmental impact on our own lifestyle and on our daily life. People have started to think about more healthy workspaces. It's not only about what can I do to treat myself better and do something good for myself. It's also what surrounds me, what influences me day by day. And in that article, for example, they even described that it is also maybe about architecture, how people create their living space. So with this idea of healthness that was obviously defined before the pandemic, there has been a slow start of building resilience more and more and coming into people's confidence. And this word resilience, I think we have heard more and more over the last weeks and months. Next slide, please. So with this healthness idea or even trend in mind, the pandemic seems even more as an opportunity for spa towns and as a new chance that they are discovered. Because if you just look at the fact and you imagine big cities, we all associate with big cities, crowds of people, little space, hectic life. And we all know that tourism in the big cities around the globe will recover less fast than maybe in other places. And then we are talking about smaller towns. Smaller towns are associated with a low pace, with green space, relaxation, well-being. It's another type of towns that seems, especially with the pandemic, more attractive. And if we at the same time look also at the opportunity that the people now discover their own places and their own spa towns, maybe where they live in a completely other different way, and maybe they develop a new interest and even a new identification with their town or their region where they live in. It's even more an opportunity and a very good chance that spa towns are using their USPs to meet the new demand for exactly the things mentioned. Spa towns with the USPs, just mentioning a few, of course, they are related to thermal waters, to the health, wellness, treatments, prevention and rehabilitation. Next slide, please. So now if we now take this opportunity and we look at the chance, I'm convinced that the discovery of the historic thermal towns in Europe can attract from now on much more the local people, and what I mentioned before, that even by creating a new identification what they have, visitors from the region might discover, and it's our chance to support our members, our local, the local people in our member towns to tell the story actually of the historic thermal towns. The domestic tourism in the different countries, in the different member countries, they have the chance to become even more aware, for example, that they have a cultural root of historic thermal towns in their own country, but also within connecting to neighboring countries, for example. So step by step, growing from the chances that we can maybe support and develop from the inside, from coming from the members through their own states, and then maybe also to neighboring states on a European and trans-European level. That can also be a chance to create more the knowledge, the visibility actually, and the awareness that these towns exist and that there are many towns connected, even in the future, to a more international market. At the same time, the chance is, of course, to rediscover the thermal waters as a natural healing factor. And that has been mentioned before today. People rediscover now with their new awareness of health, of their and the awareness of their own spa town, for example, the possibilities of having bathing, drinking, inhaling opportunities, the rehabilitation, etc. So the healing factor of the thermal water can also be recreated in a way. Talking about the chances, with the entire pandemic, there has been, of course, a new consideration of sustainable ways of tourism and sustainable ways of travel. And also this is a chance for spa towns. Think about it and imagine what I mentioned in the beginning. Spa towns have always been destinations to attract people from all over the world. Those people in the old days came by train, and train has always been and is a very sustainable way of travel. And if you just keep in mind that, for example, some of our railway stations in our spa towns were created to welcome the spa guests from all over the world. So this just as another chance that spa towns in Europe and the thermal towns can really foster the sustainable tourism, and it will help us and can take it as a chance for us to promote ourselves. Next slide, please. So keeping just these thoughts in mind, I think the pandemic is an opportunity and a chance for our association, for the E.H.T.T.A as an association, and also as a manager of the European cultural route of historic thermal towns, to connect with the institutions and associations in an institutional, political level, of course, as well as with the tourism industry and the travel industry. We are looking for partnerships, for cooperations to exactly develop what I just mentioned together and to look at our chances. Of course, we are there to support our members all over Europe, and especially because they are towns and destinations, and they are the destination management organizations. They are in charge of their thermal ecosystem because they are connecting, if it's the hotel industry in their towns or in their region, or the stakeholders in the health tourism business, in the medical tourism business. No matter what, I think it's great to tell the story together about a very great heritage we are all sharing. And it is about the DNA of the historic thermal towns and as a great travel destination. And I really would like to encourage everybody to connect and to work together to reach together the goals of recovering as spa towns in Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Simone, for enlightening us with your presentation about new trends and the labor does, E.H.T.T.A does at European level. So we thank you again. And we're moving forward with Andrew Jacka, President of Asia Pacific Spa Wellness Coalition. Are you there, Andrew?
Good evening. Buenas tardes.
Hello, Andrew. How
Hello.
are you?
I'm okay. And you?
Fine, thank you. We were waiting for you to talk about this, what we're going through right now with COVID. So if you could enlighten us with your thoughts and professional knowledge, please.
Okay, will do. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for this opportunity. Right, it's a pleasure to be with you. I'm coming to you live. It's early evening here in Thailand, where I'm talking to you from. I would just like to share my screen with my presentation. So, all right, global visions of health tourism in times of COVID. Obviously, COVID is the one big key thing that is affecting all of us at this point in time. And across Asia Pacific, right, where we represent the region, depending on which reference you look at, is approximately 60% of the world's population. So it's a significant portion of the world, right? In this part of the World Travel and Tourism Council projects a loss of 63 million jobs and over $1 trillion in revenue. This is important because travel and tourism is key in this part of the world, especially for the hot spring, the growing hot spring sector. In countries like Japan and Taiwan and even in China, yes, they have a strong local domestic tourism market, but the rest of the countries all rely very heavily on international tourism. And so across the region, there is significant job losses projected across the entire travel and tourism sector. There is no specific information available that is specific to the hot spring or the thermalism area, right? As I'm sure you're all well aware, there has been significant travel restrictions. These have been eased within countries. The international borders in the vast majority of cases are yet to open, all right? But even when they do open, travelers are expected to be very cautious about getting on the plane. Here in Asia, basically there is no international travel other than repatriation of local nationals returning home, right? And as you may have seen, right, I'm Australian. You may have seen in the media of late, there is a big hoo-ha in Australia about how difficult it is for us to get back, you know, as an Australian national, how difficult it is to get back to Australia due to the restrictions, all right? Quarantine remains mandatory on arrival. There is, depending on which country you're in, all right? Some countries will accept self-quarantine, Others, you go into state quarantine, or then there is the so-called alternative state quarantine. These varies country depending on where in the world you are, which portion of Asia Pacific. Specific to Japan, right, one of the key hot spring countries in this part of the world, all right, their numbers have gone down. They've seen a recent spike, but they're still pretty well going down. The general trend is going down. Internally, their hot springs are open, business is moving, but the international borders remain closed. All right. In Taiwan, this is a fairly unique country in terms of how they've been able to deal with the coronavirus, because they haven't had significant numbers except for an initial spike. They've kept it well under control. So they've been basically business as normal all the way through. And as you can see there, even at the height, the most numbers that they got in any one particular day didn't even top out at 30 in one day. When you get other countries that are talking tens, if not hundreds of thousands of cases per day, Taiwan has really kept it under control and has been very, very strong with the way they've handled it. And it's one of the things across Asia Pacific in general. I've got to say that the vast majority of people, because of wearing of masks and respect for others, and they have no issue with wearing masks when they're out in public. You go into shopping centers, etc., the temperature controls, everything. Everything is there in place to control it, and as much as practical to get business moving again. All right. New Zealand was one of the poster childs for the virus in terms of control. Right? That is a country that has seen a few cases of late, but in terms of the hot spring sector, broader hot spring sector, they've seen significant growth in the number of facilities available in the country, and they're investing a lot of money into drive the broader wellness economy, which is something across Asia Pacific is seeing more and more as people talk more and more about wellness, and there's a greater understanding as to what wellness is beyond feel-good massage, right? And hot springs are definitely coming to play their part in the broader wellness community. China, yes, beyond the initial spike, next door to nothing since then, all right? This picture here is a pool party which was done in Wuhan. This was only a week or so ago. So they're very much back to normal in terms of what they're doing there. You hear different reports out of the country where the wearing of masks, etc., is mandatory. Whether it's adhered to or not is like all the other countries. In areas where there is no cases or very few cases, people do tend to get a little bit lax, right? But generally speaking, it's all well controlled and everything's moving forward there, right? Indonesia is not exactly a poster child at the moment, unfortunately. They're seeing cases going up and up and up and up. The Jakarta in the center of the country is in complete shutdown at the moment. If you go to the outlying islands and areas where there is very little local transmission, yes, but Jakarta itself is shut down. Bali, a key tourism down. Right? They had initially expected to open Bali up from September, I think it was, and try to move domestic tourism forward, but it hasn't been able to materialize at this point in time. Right? Australia, right? Numbers are going down after a couple of spikes, but again, the borders within Australia is a little bit unique in that it has the international border closure, and the local airline there, Qantas, has announced that they don't expect to start flying until mid-2021. So it's domestic travel only, and even from state to state, there is still severe restrictions between which state you can travel to. So even as an expatriate, if I was flying into Australia, if I didn't fly into my home state, I would have to do 2 weeks quarantine flying into Australia, and then another 2 weeks flying into my own home state potentially, right? Depending on where you go. So controls are quite strict there, all right? Which brings us to something like World Bathing Day. Now, this is something that I talked about last year, and Termatalia is on board with this, and I hope that everybody would, if they haven't signed up, would also like to go to this website. This World Bathing Day is being pushed by the Australian hot spring industry to get the 22nd of June recognized as World Bathing Day. Obviously, this year, because of coronavirus, not a lot really happening, but they're trying to move the whole thing forward to do big things in 2022, 2023. So if you haven't signed up for World Bathing Day, right, this is your opportunity. Go to the website and fill it in, right? Nothing complicated, it's free. All right, Thailand, not necessarily known for our hot springs here, but we do have hot springs. Very much numbers are under control. The numbers, other than there was one case of a local transmission about 10 days ago, but other than that, all of the cases are expatriates or foreign Thai nationals returning to Thailand who are bringing the cases with them, right? So there's been no local transmission. So within Thailand, it's very much business as normal. Everything is open, everything is operating, except that which caters to the international tourist. And therefore, a significant portion of the hotels are closed. Still, in terms of spa and wellness, a large number of them are closed. Obviously, within the hotels, they're closed. Freestanding ones are open and operating. Everybody is, as across other countries, everybody is wearing masks, face shields, etc. All right, so to continue to mitigate the spread of the virus. There is great fear here that with the opening of borders, that there will be a surge in the numbers, and the government has only just announced that there is a special 90-day visa that they're introducing, which can be extended for up to 270 days. So long stay tourists only are being invited back at this stage. So we'll see how that goes. So that's a very quick overview as to where we're at. But as we're moving forward, what are we looking at? Something that's come to the fore of late, and yes, I know this may be coming out of Europe, but it's something here within Asia which is not well known. But there's a lot of buzz about it at the moment as to whether this stuff, especially ECA water, whether this is a potential solution as we're moving forward. Obviously, working with face masks and plastic and the general pollution that causes in terms of health, we've got to deal with it. So to try and offset that, and instead of bleaching everything to kill viruses, etc., there is a big move to look for alternative solutions. Therefore, we're seeing things like ozone and UVC lights, etc., which are being used, right? Both which have negative, they may be very good sanitizers, but there is negative elements to both of those as well. Whereas something like ECA water, which has been used for 170 years or whatever it's been used for now, and still relatively unheard of, right? For those who don't know about it, it's basically salt, water, and electricity. You can make your own. It's simple, easy, and purportedly even does kill the coronavirus, all right? Although I've yet to see actual documentation to prove that. But it's got the European Union numbers and whatever there, all right? And it is US EPA approved as a sanitizer. So definitely something that we're looking at, and the whole element, and this is very much part of the growth in sustainability and the interest in sustainability as we're moving forward, right? Across the region, face masks, I mean, if you walk down the street, it's probably safe to say 98% of the people, right, are wearing face masks. Social distancing is pretty standard. Hand sanitizers everywhere, right? Absolutely everywhere. Domestic tourism has started to come back, although it's slow. They generally tend to avoid flying. They prefer to drive. It doesn't matter what country you're in within this region. If possible, they do prefer to drive rather than take a domestic flight. International tourism is not expected to rebound until 2021 and not expected to fully recover until 2023. So there's the long haul to go. We've got a long way to go yet. Very much on the upside, there is a growth in the sense of community, right? Be that industry communities or just general community in terms of connectivity with others and family and friends and all that sort of thing, right? It is becoming very, very much the thing to do, all right? Other things as we're moving forward, I mean, generally speaking, the whole eco-friendly movement in terms of travel within Asia Pacific had already been identified before COVID-19, right? So that's the way the region was going. And what we're seeing now is a significant growth in the awareness of the Sustainable Development Goals. And I know they've been around for a few years, but a lot of people still don't know about them. We, within the Asia Pacific Spa and Wellness Coalition, we will actually be introducing very shortly, right, as in next month, we will be introducing a set of Sustainable Development Goals for spa and wellness here in the Asia Pacific region, right? And we'll actually be working with 7 of those goals. But that's all part and parcel of a broader interest in sustainability, wellness tourism, protection of the environment, cleaning of the oceans, reducing of plastics, etc. The interest and the awareness is very much there, and so this is just riding along on that to move it forward. Within Asia Pacific, so many of the countries, they're sort of just sitting, waiting. They're ready to pounce on the world as soon as borders are open to entice the international tourists back. So you can look forward to some really good deals, I think, when the borders do really open up again. But as I said, currently it's not expected that we'll start much movement. I mean, even here in Thailand, it looks like we'll be talking, for a general tourist, we're probably talking January 2021, right? But again, across the broader sector, we're not looking to return to significant numbers until 2023. So there's a way to go yet, and there's plenty of businesses within the tourism sector that will close, or those that are related to it. We've seen significant drop in support businesses, travel agents, etc., closed down left, right, and center. When borders reopen, it'll be interesting to see how many of them come back or whether a significant portion of them had closed permanently. It has been suggested as many as 50% of the spa and wellness sector operators will close in this region. I would hope to think that is not the case, because we as an industry, this is when we have the opportunity to really grow and develop, because the spa industry has got very high sanitization and really good hygiene protocols in place, especially in the top end properties. So there's no reason why we can't grow and really move the whole thing forward. So, all right. Yeah, okay. So thank you very much, everybody. That was a very quick, very brief overview of Asia Pacific. And where are we? Okay, and I hope, it gives you some insight into what we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew, for giving us that accurate numbers about domestic flights, domestic and inbound travel market, that it's very important for those travelers who are seeking to go to Asia know the regulations and norms. So we're going to support you on your petition for the World Bathing Day. So you can count on us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. So we're moving forward.
Thank you.
With now Camille Hohef, CEO of Wellness Tourism Worldwide. I don't know if she's online. Vamos a continuar ahora con Camille Hohef, que es la directora ejecutiva de Wellness Tourism Worldwide en Estados Unidos, y vamos a tratar de conectar ahora en este minuto con ella. Hello, Camille.
Hello, greetings from New York.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for attending today and helping us with this subject that is very important for everyone. Please enlighten us.
Yes, thank you for the invitation and for the inclusion. I think it's so important, the work that Termatalia is doing to bring together basically the global wellness tourism industry onto this hybrid platform. It's no easy feat to have a hybrid conference, so congratulations. And special thanks again to Termatalia, Fernández, and Orense. So I'd like to ask that my PowerPoint, yes, thank you. We're going to move, please, to the next slide. I've organized this presentation into two parts. One is the state of tourism in the United States, and the other, which are the challenges, and the other are the opportunities for wellness tourism, for global tourism. So starting with this slide, obviously coronavirus has inflicted a great toll on the US, sadly. We're nearing 200,000 deaths, over 6 million cases, and that number is expected to increase over the winter months. There's been a lot of confusion since the start of the pandemic. Since the pandemic was first declared, the US was unprepared. Our political system hasn't really taken a leadership position. There's been racial unrest, and all of this cumulatively has created great divides within the US. There are still debates on whether what businesses should open, in what capacity, how schools should open and in what capacity, and even simple things like wearing a mask is up for debate, unfortunately. So unlike what Andrew had described in Asia, is pretty much, in terms of mask wearing and compliance, the opposite in the US. Next slide, please. Travel restrictions are gradually being lifted in many countries, and tourists, do want to travel, but there are a lot of catches. And this map of the world actually shows how limited the opportunities are for people in the United States to travel, and quite frankly, most don't want to travel. But this shows only 8 countries. If you can go to the next slide, please. If you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. That speak to the number of countries that have no restrictions for the U.S., for U.S. citizens, which you see in blue. And then in yellow, you see other countries that have some sort of restrictions, ranging from COVID tests to quarantines, some requiring fees and deposits upon entry. Next slide, please. Now, on the flip side, this shows travelers that are prohibited from entry to the United States. Next slide. Before the coronavirus, the US economy was very strong, and tourism was certainly a huge contributor to that. Second, overall, in terms of export for the US, with trillions in dollars for the economy, and 1 out of 10 employees were part of the tourism and hospitality industry. And coronavirus has significantly changed that landscape. Next slide, please. You can see from some of these headlines how we've been impacted from airlines dropping drastically in capacity, to the rate of unemployment. Next slide. To the way that cruise lines are operating. In terms of restaurants, there has been massive layoffs in the hospitality sector. There have also been, unfortunately, massive closures of restaurants. I believe somewhere between 40% have already closed, expected as high as 60% of all US restaurants once the pandemic has completed its cycle, which is unbelievable. Next slide, please. The US itself, we have a patchwork of rules and regulations, not really led by the federal government, but led states. So there's a great deal of variance from state to state, which has led to a lot of confusion and an increase in coronavirus cases. What you see in gray are those that have no restrictions. And as a matter of fact, California and Texas, which are the two biggest states, have no restrictions. On the flip side, where you see in green, those are the states that have significant restrictions. And I can speak specifically to, I moved from California last year to New York State, to upstate New York. New York was hit very hard at the very beginning of the pandemic. We stand at having over 33,000 deaths and I think 450 cases at this point in time. The next slide, please. These requirements, for New York State, this just gives you an idea of our type of restriction for New York State in terms of quarantining for 14 days for the majority of the states in the U.S. I also want to mention that where I live, so New York City, basically New York City was hit the hardest. I live about 2 hours from New York City, and there have been less than 3,000 cases and more or less 120 deaths in the region that I live in, which is the capital of New York State. Next slide, please. This infographic, I think, is very powerful. It shows that while the U.S. is in a recession, our tourism industry is in a deep depression. In fact, we've been hit so hard as to say that as hard as tourism was hit in 9/11 and even during the Great Depression. And as I said, many businesses are struggling and continue to struggle. If you look at the number of expected losses of over $505 billion, that's a massive amount of revenue being lost, of lives being changed permanently, of unemployment, of businesses going under. So this has taken a significant toll in the U.S. as there is no international tourism and there is no domestic tourism. And Andrew, it was interesting to hear Andrew mention that Asia Pacific is expected to recover by 2023. I think ours is more in line with 2024. Just a number of days ago, Dr. Fauci said that most likely will be impacted in terms of coronavirus until the end of 2021, so the end of next year. Next slide, please. So in response to these major losses, the U.S. Travel Association has launched a Let's Go There Soon campaign. And this campaign is it's one of the biggest travel advertisement blitzes in the U.S. since 9/11. It's a $10 million campaign currently, and that number is rising. There's over 75 key stakeholders, including airlines, major hotel groups, Disney, to promote the idea and to inspire Americans to think about planning their next trip in the U.S. There's also a free toolkit that was developed by the U.S. Travel Association that's available to any travel stakeholder, any travel agent, any tour operator, et cetera, any attraction, anyone related to tourism that wants to inspire Americans to travel in the U.S. This campaign includes free downloads, a toolkit that is graphics and sample copy, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to ask for the next slide and share with you some of the interesting research that's coming out from a company called Destination Analysts in the US. And the next couple of slides are about American sentiment regarding travel. So we see that this slide shows that about a quarter of those being polled took some sort of trip over the summer. Next slide. And the types of accommodations where they stayed, mostly staying with friends and those that they knew. And then second to that was full service. But if you look in where it says in red, camping, how camping really has increased, even though that's a lower number, increased substantially. And the idea of renting an RV and driving to your local destination. Next slide, please. So the types of destinations that visitors wanted, in essence, if you look at all the numbers, well, of course, beach is number one. Who doesn't want to go to a lovely beach? But if you look at the numbers, 70% of all these categories have to do with being outside in nature. And then the 30% has to do with being in a city and some kind of built environment like a theme park. So the great outdoors remains really of top interest to US travelers. Next slide, please. The next slide, please. Thank you. And here you can see perceived safety of travel activities. So really, it should be the flip. It's kind of a little bit, I think, of a confusing table. But those at the very bottom are considered the safest. So road trips considered the safest, being outdoors being the safest, and then cruise lines not being safe at all considered by US travelers and taken in this poll. Next slide, please. And I'm just breezing over this I'm sorry, I'm not giving great detail with some of these slides for the reason of time constraints, and I want to make sure that I adhere to the time that I have allocated for this. So this second part of this presentation is not about specifically the US, but opportunities born out of crisis and the acceleration of the mainstreaming of wellness on a global and massive scale. Next slide, please. So there are a number of survival strategies that I've outlined in this presentation, one of them being new growth. And new growth can be seen in a number of different areas through strategic partnerships, specifically those partnerships being products and services related to improving hygiene. And many years ago, back in 2013, when I did my first wellness travel trends report, I mentioned that the trend of wellness taking off, wellness in flight, the idea that wellness was being embedded within the customer journey at airports and airlines. And now we see it really come full swing as there has been really a requirement in terms of upgrading hygiene, health and safety protocols within the airports and within the airlines. The other thing that I found very interesting is, you may have seen this, which is E.H.T.T.A has now a brand of wellness in response to COVID. So while COVID has been very challenging for the tourism industry as a whole, there are, as far as health and wellness, it has put us in the spotlight. And I think that, in a way, that obviously is a good thing. Next slide, please. Continuing on to new growth strategies, there are spa operators, hotel brands, hotel spas, and spa vendors that have changed the way they operate in terms of hygiene standards. So spa operators have partnered with medical organizations to improve hygiene standards. You see the equipment supplier, one of them, Living Earth Crafts, which created a new product, introduced a safeguard treatment for treatment beds, so creating a barrier for the therapist so that it protected them for facials and face-up treatments. You see other types of hotels and destinations across the board which have announced and reopened with a number of new hygiene measures and protocols. Some have created immune boosting, food menus or essential oil combinations to help promote wellness, strengthen the immune system. And you see other hotel spas that have taken the opportunity to adapt and pivot. And while their spas may not be open, they have created in-room kits with do-it-yourself tutorials. So there has been some adaptation across the board in order to, maintain some continuity of service. Next slide, please. I thought this was very interesting from the Accor brand. They created their All Safe and Well. It's its own separate website. They have invested a significant amount of resources in terms of putting together their advisory council. You see to the right, which is the guest experience in food and beverage. Also maintaining relationships with a doctor from a very credible medical institution, and the fact that they have thought out every touch point from the moment that the guest arrives to the moment the guest leaves. And you can see that on this arc. I'm not going to read every one again for the purpose of time, but I do encourage you, if you want to learn more about it, there's a lot of information on their website. I think it's also notable that they took a lot of care in terms of their partnerships and the type of information that they were collecting in order to create these different touch points and protocols. So they took information from, let's see, I think it was the World Health Organization, the CDC, the Lodging Association, many different organizations worked collaboratively on this project, on this initiative rather. Next slide, please. Now, I think this is interesting in terms of pivoting and adapting. So this may be true for other countries where schools were closed, and so education became a virtual experience for school children. So here you have an example of Disney, I think it was also the Four Seasons, and then you have this resort in Mexico that pivoted pretty well on this in terms of the luxury market. So appealing to the luxury market, the affluent customer, affluent families that had children that needed to be schooled, but why not take them to a beautiful location where they can also learn Spanish and they can learn some of the culture of the destination while being educated online. Next slide, please. The other survival strategy that I've seen is strengthening your roots. And when I say that, it is looking towards your own community and your own employees. And there was one really great example that I've mentioned several times through my articles and through another speaking engagement about the Fairmont Princess in Scottsdale. They put together basically an opportunity for local residents to watch drive-in movies from the comfort of their own cars and the safety of their own cars. Those proceeds then went to subsidizing meals for the employees' families. And that tells me a lot about the fact that they care for their employees and they care for their community as well. Next slide. Another example that I saw comes from Six Senses, and they did a similar type of COVID relief. This was, I believe this was purchased an online cooking class, and the proceeds went to providing food for residents in Thailand. Next slide, please. May I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Now, the other survival strategy is, sustainability. I call it leftovers and recycling. But since there are so many skilled workers that are now without, with now either furloughed or without jobs, there's an opportunity for larger brands, larger companies to hire them. There's also an opportunity for those other businesses that may be in contractual obligations to renegotiate their lease or renegotiate lease contracts with suppliers. Next slide, please. The last survival strategy that I want to talk about is regeneration. And I see regeneration in terms of scaling up. And what I mean by that is using technology to your advantage. And I've seen everything pretty much at this point, excuse me, move online, such as Termatalia and other types of conferences and events, knowledge through shared knowledge. If we can go to the next slide, I'll give some examples. If we can go to the next slide, I'll give some examples. Thank you. So there's At Home with Six Senses, and they've done some really interesting things in terms of their social media and providing education on wellness through their various platforms. Airbnb, where they were formerly promoting live guest experiences through local talent, now it is via online. So local talent can offer bespoke learning opportunities online. Then Como Shambhala has offered some sort of subscription basis for being well, whether it's a number of yoga classes or meditation classes or what have you. I have also seen an uptick. Many years ago, I launched Wellness Travel Academy for those wellness for professionals who wanted to learn about wellness tourism and wellness travel. And I've seen an uptick in registrations for Wellness Travel Academy, using this time to invest in skill sets that can be useful in the future. Next slide, please.
Sorry, Camille, for interrupting you, but we have only a minute to wrap up, please.
And I only have 1 or 2 slides left, so it's perfect timing.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yes.
Do your wrap up. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, I appreciate it. If I can go to the next slide, please. So I had mentioned events being shared online, Global Wellness Day, World Wellness Weekend, different conferences, there's podcasts, digital opportunities to pivot and promote yourself and use the technology that's available today. It can help promote your brand in a very cost-effective manner. Next slide, please. And the parting thought is, I had heard back in 2013, I think it was the Wellness Summit in Singapore, where one of the speakers had talked about the democratization of wellness. And I see this crisis as a very democratizing force. And the fact that we're all in it together, and it's important for us to share information and different viewpoints and perspectives. And with that, I'll end my presentation. Thank you so much for your patience. If you have any questions, here's my contact information. You're welcome to reach out to me directly.
Well, Thank you, Camille, for giving us such an accurate information, jaw-dropping numbers. It's very important for us to know the U.S. scope, knowing that you're betting on domestic travelers more than inbound. So it's very important and enlightening to know that you are doing and implementing strategies to keep tourism going inside your country.
Thank you for the opportunity to share the information. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Camille. Well, we're now going to listen to Lotfi Khelifi, Termatalia International Delegate for Tunisia and North Africa. Hello, Lotfi. I think now it's connecting. Hi, Lotfi.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, Lotfi. So it's your turn now, please.
Thank you very much. You hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Quite perfectly.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much for this opportunity to share you this very important issue and very important topic in this very critical time. I hope the best and the health for all our colleagues there and all over the world. Actually, I wanted to send you my hello from Tunisia, one of the remarkable countries in terms of tourism and health tourism and wellness. And I won't take a lot of time because I think that everything is clear now front of us all. We are not facing, according to me, just an epidemic, but we are really in a real war now. It's not only a healthy war, because it's a war with a hidden, I can call it a hidden enemy, as far as we couldn't face this epidemic with serious solutions until now. So I can call it an enemy, not epidemic. The problem of this enemy is causing a worldwide war, which is a global war, anti-humanity in general. No human enemy against human enemies in our traditional words. It's an epidemic against all. It's horrible not because of his dangerous results in the term of health issues, but it's a seriously global problem which affect economies aspects and by results, food and lifestyle, life quality, and each single thing in our life. You know, with tourism and travel, and with medical tourism, nowadays the world is a very small village where we can meet at any time, at any place, usually. Unfortunately, with this epidemic, we are not free. We are no more free to move. The best point in the medical tourism that it's giving chance to patients to save their lives abroad. But now it's not the same case. This is the problem. In the Middle East, we are receiving patients from different countries to be treated. In the Arab world, in Tunisia, in Morocco, in Egypt, in Dubai, in Jordan. And also, we are sending patients to many other countries like USA, Germany, Malaysia, Korea, France, Germany, and so on. So we are inbound and outbound destinations, which makes the task more complicated. So it's very difficult now to send patient abroad, and it's very difficult also to receive patient. Now, what is the situation before and now, and what we can expect from this epidemic, which we are facing, which I call an enemy that crosses borders and is still hidden until now. In Tunisia, for example, with the starting of this epidemic, we closed the borders for 2 months. And the government take very serious action. The result was 0 cases for 3 months in Tunisia. Life became comfortable, freedom, and everything. We were very happy. We were among the 4 or 5 countries in the world with no coronavirus, free of coronavirus. As we have our citizens who are living abroad, in Europe especially, and they need to come to Tunisia like every summer, and no government and no country wants to forbidden them to come to their home countries. So we try to open the borders under very aggressive security rules. Unfortunately, it doesn't work. So if I can give you some statistics, for example, in Tunisia, in April, we were in 0 cases. I think one of the very fewest countries with no epidemic in April and May and June. So the total cases from the starting of this bad epidemic until end of April, March, it's 883 cases only, with 270, with only 14 deaths. Now, unfortunately, we are in 7,382 with 117 deaths. It's true that we are still among the best countries in facing in this epidemic, but when we open the border for the tourism, everything go down, and now we are in real bothering situation. We will continue opening the borders, and we will assume the bad results, or we will close the country again, and we will assume bad results also in terms of economics. Now, the problem will not be easily resolved as far as every country will try to take the same action separately of other countries. The problem is global. So we are calling all people, all humanity, all governments far away of WHO to find a solution. The people across all the countries are suffering. And it's horrible that this enemy, we couldn't find a friend time to at least give to the people some hope in the future. The WHO started in January giving us a very bad news, and until yesterday, the mission of this organization is just to give bad news, no perspectives, no hope. Even the trails of giving us solutions, medical solutions, it's not credible so far. I am really sad to talk about the situation with this darkness view, but it is the reality. I hope that the next meeting will be with you wherever you will be, our beloved Termatalia, as it was every year. We meet and we discuss face to face with a big happiness. I hope next year we will recover and go back to our nice time and lovely time. I wanted to give you some information about health, tourism, and wellness in the Middle East. Just to finish my speech with a good report. In the Arab world countries, we have 7 countries among the most important thermal treatment and medical tourism destinations in the world. The most notable factors that contributed in the improvement of this sector can be summarized in this divine good nature in terms of climate and big potential of hot spring water sources, especially in Tunisia and Jordan. I will give you some examples as countries sampled in the following. In Tunisia is ranked as the 2nd in the world in the therapy, with 42 baths rich in salt and sulfates, which are useful human health and help cure many diseases. More than 150 traditional thermal stations, Tunisian hot water is known by its great ability to heal people from obesity, back and joint pains, and nose and throat disease. Among the most famous Tunisian spa, we have our beloved site, which is called Corbus and Djerba. By the way, as a Tunisian challenge and personal challenge, next month on 16th and 17th on October, I will also organize Djerba Health Tourism Congress. And I invite all of you, if you wanted to be with us online, you are most welcome. We have both on-site and online. It's a very important Congress in this critical time. So not only Tunisia is considered among the most prominent health tourism destination in the Arab region, but also at the global level. For example, more than 5,000 patients from England choose Tunisia for thermal treatment yearly. More than 270,000 persons come to the country every year to benefit from thermal facilities in Tunisia. Among about 650,000 patients are treated last year in different specialties in medical, including spine surgery, such as the transplantation and solid organs, kidneys, hearts, as well as cosmetic surgery, which is very well known in Tunisia, eye treatment, coma, transplant, and other surgeries. I don't know, I still have some time or not, but in general, this is my contribution. I know if you have any question, I'm ready.
Thank you, Lotfi. I believe we're going to do the questions after the sessions, and we're going to upload it to the hashtag that we have on the Congress. And any other question, we're going to send it directly to your email so you can answer them directly. Thank you, Lotfi. Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you very much. Solidaire.
Thank you. Bye bye. Ahora vamos a continuar con nuestra última ponente, que es Florana Menéndez. Ella es la vicepresidenta de la Federación Mundial de Climatoterapia e Hidroterapia. y nos va a cerrar este ciclo de ponencias relacionadas al COVID, desafíos y oportunidades. Vamos a esperar a ver que se pueda conectar la señora Florana. Unos segundos y ya continuamos y cada uno puede ir a almorzar y nos vemos en la segunda parte del Congreso a las 3:30. Hola, Florana.
Muchas gracias, estoy conectada. Saludos a todos.
Muy buenas tardes, Florana. Por favor, te dejo para que puedas hablar tranquilamente de tu tema de expertise. Por favor, adelante.
Gracias, gracias. Quiero, ante todo, dar las gracias a toda la organización de Termatalia por esta importante invitación y, obviamente, saludar a todos los participantes presentes en el forense y en online. Yo tengo una serie de slides que quería mostrarles porque nosotros en la FinTech hemos trabajado en estos últimos 6 meses bastante duro y muy presionados sobre el futuro del termalismo, del turismo de la salud en estos duros tiempos de la pandemia. Próximo slide, por favor. No se ve muy bien el slide, por lo menos de aquí de mi computadora, pero quisiera decirles puntos claves de la presentación. Porque, como todos sabemos, la pandemia de COVID está causando muchos sufrimientos y conflictos en el mundo. Y como ha contribuido una gran amenaza para la salud pública, todos nosotros nos hemos visto obligados y muy conscientes de que trabajar y combatir el problema de la salud pública mundial es una prioridad. Y también estos problemas nos han dejado claro que ha sido verdaderamente una amenaza globalizada y que requiere respuestas internacionales adecuadas. Sobre todo necesitamos de contar con una red de protección social y sanitaria, intercambios eficaces en los servicios sanitarios y sociales, y fortalecer las bases del bienestar para desarrollar la resiliencia en nuestras familias, en nuestras comunidades y debemos y estamos obligados a cambiar prioridades y comportamientos en todos los niveles. Eso quiere decir que la pandemia es una oportunidad que hay que aprovechar. Próximo slide, por favor. De todas formas, el impacto de la crisis en el turismo es un punto que debemos enfatizar y que ya se ha hablado bastante en las anteriores conferencias. Pero eso quiere decir que la reapertura significa implementación de nuevas normativas, protocolos de seguridad, higiene, recomendaciones de salud. Y hemos visto que en casi todas las partes del mundo están trabajando en recuperar el turismo de proximidad para disfrutar de la naturaleza de nuestros países, de la riqueza local, de la tradición, de la cultura. Y el turismo rural, el turismo de naturaleza, así como el turismo de bienestar y salud, tendrán una rápida recuperación. Ciertamente, si se diseñan estrategias, planificación, marketing y gobernanza de acuerdo a las condiciones actuales. Por lo tanto, nosotros pensamos que tenemos que trabajar en la recuperación de los destinos con identidad propia que pueden garantizar seguridad, sostenibilidad, tanto natural como cultural, para que sean competitivos. Próximo slide, por favor. Quiere decir que una palabra de orden es renovar el turismo de salud y bienestar, porque ha sido uno de los sectores más afectados dentro del sector turístico. Y, por ejemplo, existen organizaciones como el Consejo Mundial de Viajes y Turismo, que estima que la industria está perdiendo más de 120 millones de puestos de trabajo y 3.4 billones de ingresos en el 2020. Por tanto, están presentando un conjunto urgente de medidas destinadas a reconstruir la confianza del consumidor global, reducir el riesgo e incentivar los viajes con seguridad y higiene. Quiere decir que esta pausa ha dado la oportunidad de reflexionar. Y según el Instituto Global del Bienestar, se prevé que el turismo de bienestar crezca a una tasa anual promedio de 7.5% a partir del 2022. Esto es más alta que la tasa proyectada para este periodo, que va a ser de un 6.4% para el crecimiento anual del turismo global en general. Se predice que el bienestar será una prioridad para todos y que en los próximos meses el turismo de bienestar comenzará a llegar a lugares centrales. Se utilizan actualmente para esto muchos términos: reiniciar, renovar, restablecer el mundo con bienestar. Y las discusiones, las experiencias están guiándonos a buscar soluciones de digitalización, sostenibilidad, innovación, seguridad en los destinos de salud. Pero todas estas palabras hay que convertirlas en acciones. Y estas acciones comienzan por repensar cómo puede ser el futuro del turismo de salud y bienestar y el termalismo. Próximo slide, por favor. ¿Por qué queremos focalizarnos en este tema de la FinTech y el termalismo? Porque los centros termales, como todos conocemos, suministran servicios orientados a la protección de la salud, a la promoción de estilos de vida saludables. Quiere decir que son servicios de salud esenciales que pueden lograr desarrollar la inmunidad comunitaria y mejorar el bienestar. Reforzar el sistema de salud, la tolerancia inmunológica, contrarrestar los numerosos impactos negativos, físicos, mentales, sociales y económicos, es una apuesta que tenemos que ganar. Quiere decir que para la oferta terapéutica, la producción de la salud y la promoción de servicios y de estilos de vida necesarios, se conjugan o encajan en este nuevo concepto moderno de One Health, de una sola salud, que también está definida como salud circular. En este concepto, que implica que las condiciones de salud, así como la calidad del medio ambiente, están estrictamente entrelazadas y que es muy necesaria una gestión integrada de la salud pública. Por lo tanto, en este contexto, los centros termales se inscriben perfectamente en este concepto de una sola salud. Y en esta perspectiva pueden jugar un papel importante en la implementación de políticas, acciones de salud en lo que respecta a la prevención y formando así parte de una respuesta global de las autoridades públicas a la pandemia actual. El bienestar, obviamente, incluido el ejercicio, la nutrición, las opciones de estilo de vida, deben integrarse en este sistema de prestación de atención médica. Ahora, ¿qué nosotros hemos intentado hacer en estos meses? Debido a que hay que implementar nuevas investigaciones, metodologías que contribuyan a renovar el mundo de la salud y del bienestar. La FinTech, que además mantiene relaciones oficiales con la Organización Mundial de la Salud, apoyado estrategias en este sentido y organizó un workshop el 28 de abril online con la participación de líderes de 18 países miembros de la FinTech. ¿Cuál era el título? ¿Cómo afectará el COVID-19 la balneología? Y con diversas organizaciones con las cuales trabaja la FinTech, como instituciones como la ISMH, la AFRET, que es la Asociación Francesa de Investigaciones Termales, la FORS, que es la Fundación Italiana para las Investigaciones en Balneología, han intentado de crear un conjunto de estrategias mediante los cuales los centros termales de salud deberían comenzar a implementar. Y aquí nosotros se las resumimos, como fortalecer la vocación de la salud, establecer servicios de rehabilitación para pacientes con COVID, revisar críticamente la evolución reciente, considerar las propias terapias que se adapten mejor a las demandas de salud, desarrollar acciones y planes efectivos con los médicos de cabecera, con los químicos, con los farmacéuticos locales, explotar la tecnología digital moderna, explotar la telemedicina, ofrecer experiencias propias a los sistemas nacionales y regionales, promover los proyectos de investigación científica que tan importantes son en estos momentos, mejorar los patrones de gestión, superar el enfoque centrado en el individuo para ser parte de una red integrada y coordinada de acuerdo a las tradiciones nacionales, a los sistemas legales. Pero todas estas informaciones las pueden encontrar también publicadas en internet, publicadas en el sitio de la FinTech. ¿Por qué? Porque se ha considerado que la demanda de la medicina termal está aumentando y entre otras razones, como todos conocemos, porque la sociedad está envejeciendo, porque la conciencia sobre la salud está aumentando y el número de personas que padecen enfermedades de la edad moderna crece. Y los participantes a esta reunión del 28 de abril propusieron hacer un llamamiento a los gobiernos y a las organizaciones internacionales no gubernamentales, a las compañías de seguro y a otras interesantes instituciones para que tomaran medidas. Próximo slide, por favor. Y estas medidas que se han propuesto, que tenemos aquí resumidas, como ustedes ven, son medidas que los gobiernos deben, y nosotros consideramos, deben poner atención para actuar. Sobre todo, la de incluir la medicina termal en el sistema de atención médica en los países que aún no lo hayan realizado y reconocer la medicina termal como parte integral de la atención médica. Reconocer por los gobiernos la medicina termal como un campo de conocimiento separado que requiere educación pre- y posgrado. Tener en cuenta que se creó una sección de balneología en la Unión Europea y en colaboración con la OMS existen proyectos como el de Hidroglobo. Y hay que proporcionar condiciones financieras porque es importantísimo realizar investigaciones que justifiquen además una economía rentable en este sentido. Difundir y desarrollar el conocimiento sobre el significado y el papel de la medicina termal en el espacio público es fundamental. Por lo tanto, de acuerdo a estos puntos, se propuso que la medicina termal se debe incluir en los sistemas de salud de los países europeos como un derecho para que sus ciudadanos accedan a esta modalidad de curación donde hay indicaciones médicas para ello. Continuando con las acciones, Debemos proponer que para la salud y el género existen disposiciones que ha creado la FENTEC y por lo tanto se ha comprometido con la acción para generar algunas otras acciones para los operadores de la salud. Por favor, la próxima diapositiva. No veo la próxima diapositiva.
Un minuto para cerrar, para que nos puedas ayudar a concretar las ideas.
Ya terminé. Lo único que me queda por decirles es que se creó una comisión que se llama Salud y Género por la FENTEC, que propone soluciones para mejorar las condiciones laborales de las mujeres en los centros de salud, garantizarles el empleo en condiciones dignas y permitir que el papel activo de las mujeres contribuya a la innovación, a la infraestructura y la economía en estos países. Y el último slide simplemente les habla de las próximas actividades, y por favor pongan el último slide, les habla de las próximas actividades que tendremos en la FENTEC y que los invitamos a participar. Entre ellas queríamos decirle que la FENTEC junto con Termatalia participó en el Global Wellness Day y quisiéramos que participaran en nuestras próximas actividades en el Congreso de la FENTEC de noviembre de 2020, que será también online. Les agradezco que hayan tenido la paciencia de escucharme y espero poderlos encontrar en las próximas iniciativas internacionales. Gracias.
Muchas gracias a ti, Florana, como siempre, por participar tan activamente de Termatalia. Agradecemos también a la audiencia que está acá escuchándote y seguramente tienen muchas preguntas que les agradecemos puedan realizar a través del hashtag del Congreso y se les responderán individualizadamente. Muchas gracias a todos y nuevamente muchas gracias, Florana, por tus palabras. Hasta luego. Ya terminaron las jornadas, digamos.